Nvidia's $5 trillion market cap is larger than the GDPs of Japan, Germany, and India. What's remarkable is how it all began. When Jensen Huang co-founded Nvidia inside a Denny's restaurant 30 years ago, his goal was to build chips that made video games look real. But he soon recognized it could be something bigger. The same chips that powered gaming could train neural networks, the foundation of AI. He was so certain that he bet the entire company on it. It became an obsession.
I work from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed. When I'm not working, I'm thinking about working. When I'm working, I'm working.
Today, all major AI systems like ChatGPT, Grok, Copilot, Midjourney run on Nvidia hardware. This is the story of how Jensen Huang transformed Nvidia from a gaming startup into the most valuable company on Earth. The roots of Huang's resilience go back to his childhood. Born in Taipei, Taiwan, he spent his early years in Bangkok, where his father worked at a petroleum refinery, dreaming of bringing his family to America. In 1973, amid political unrest, his parents sent 9-year-old Jensen and his brother to live with an uncle in Tacoma, Washington. The uncle quickly decided they should attend a boarding school and enrolled them in Oneida Baptist Institute in rural Kentucky that was actually a juvenile reform center. He was the only Asian student, the smallest in his class, he had skipped a grade, and he was often bullied. Yet he smiled and brushed it off, building up a quiet resilience that would define him. He finally felt at home when he reunited with his parents and settled near Portland, Oregon to attend high school. Despite an almost perfect GPA, he chose to attend Oregon State University, likely to stay close to his family, where he majored in electrical engineering. He fell in love with circuit design and also became enamored with his lab partner, Lori Mills, one of a handful of women in a program dominated by men.
And so I walked up to her and I said, "Do you want to see my homework?" Then I made her a promise. I said, if you do homework with me every Sunday, I promise you, you will get straight A's. Okay? And as a result, I had a date every Sunday.
To make sure Lori married him, Jensen promised that by the time he turned 30, he'd be a CEO. And he was. After graduating, Huang first joined AMD, which would later become one of Nvidia's fiercest rivals. He then moved to LSI Logic, which made custom silicon chips for tech companies, including Sun Microsystems. It was at LSI that he met Chris Malachowski and Curtis Priam, two brilliant chip designers from Sun Microsystems. They bonded over their vision of creating powerful, affordable chips for PC gaming, a market Sun had dismissed as trivial. By 1993, the three men decided to take the leap. They met at a Denny's in San Jose, the same chain where Jensen worked as a dishwasher as a teen, and sketched out a plan for their new company. They initially called it NV, short for New Venture, then changed the name to Envision. But when that was already taken, they settled on Nvidia, from the Latin word meaning envy. Huang became CEO, Priam the CTO, and Malachowski the VP of Engineering. Each took equal shares, but only Huang held a seat on the board.
I remember calling my mom and telling her that I'm going to start this company, and she says, what do you guys do? And I said, we build these things called 3D graphics chips, and people would use them to play games. And then she said, why don't you go get a job?
Lori was a talented engineer herself, but left her job to raise their two kids even though money was tight, always believing in her husband. By the end of 1995, Nvidia had released its first commercial graphics chip, the NV1. But it was an absolute disaster. The NV1 wasn't built to render triangles, the basic building blocks of 3D graphics. Instead, it used curved surfaces called quadratics, promising smoother visuals with fewer shapes. But game developers had already built their worlds from triangles. To use Nvidia's chip, they'd have to rewrite their code from scratch. And when Microsoft's new DirectX standard made triangles the industry norm, the NV1 was left behind, causing glitches and crashes. Nvidia was bleeding out. Huang laid off 70% of his employees. That sense of impending doom led to the company motto, "Our company is 30 days from going out of business." What ultimately saved Nvidia was the Japanese video game giant Sega. The company had contracted Nvidia to build a follow-up to the NV1, based on the same flawed architecture. Even after Huang told Sega that Nvidia was abandoning the NV2, Sega still paid Nvidia $1 million. That check became Nvidia's last lifeline. It wasn't enough to fund a new prototype, but it was enough to buy a hardware emulator that could simulate how a chip would work in software. It was the first time in the semiconductor industry a chip had been designed and tested entirely in software without ever producing a physical prototype first. That chip would become the NV3. Tensions ran deep at Nvidia. Prem, the CTO, wanted to keep his beloved quadratic design. Huang wanted to survive. Things grew so bitter that Prem was eventually demoted, stopped coming to the office, and later sold all his Nvidia shares, long before the company's meteoric rise that would have made him billions. In the summer of 1997, the NV3 arrived, rebuilt around triangles, and it worked perfectly. Within 4 months, Nvidia sold 1 million units, saving the company. Nvidia turns certain death into a breakthrough thanks to math and problem solving. If you want to think like Jensen, you need the right tools. I personally love Brilliant. Their interactive lessons in math, science, programming, and AI let you learn by doing, which is way more effective than watching lectures. With Brilliant's new digital circuits course, you'll see exactly how GPUs juggle billions of tasks in parallel, just like Nvidia's chips. Or you can dive into AI by training simple neural nets and see how models like ChatGPT really work. I personally use Brilliant 10 to 15 minutes a day, and it's definitely helped me become a better thinker. You can start learning for free at brilliant.org/newsthink or scan the QR code. Brilliant's also giving you 20% off their annual premium plan if you use my custom link in the description, giving you unlimited access to thousands of lessons. Although Nvidia's chips were being fabbed in Europe, the fabs couldn't keep up with its ambitions, so Huang turned to TSMC, the world's best independent chip foundry based in Taiwan. But he couldn't get its founder and CEO Morris Chang to return his calls, so in a last-ditch effort, he mailed him a letter and got a call back. Both shared similar paths: Chinese immigrants who had risen into management positions when Asian representation in leadership was rare. TSMC agreed to fabricate Nvidia's breakthrough chip, the NV4, completely redesigned. Instead of handling 1 pixel at a time, Nvidia built 2 identical pipelines onto the same chip, like 2 assembly lines running in sync. Parallel processing, allowing processors to handle multiple tasks simultaneously, became the DNA of every modern GPU, or graphics processing unit. Today, those chips juggle billions of calculations per second to power AI. Huang's vision culminated in the GeForce line in the early 2000s, Nvidia's flagship family of GPUs powering PC gaming. But the launch of the GeForce FX went horribly wrong. It was noisy, hot, and slow. Even his 13-year-old son Spencer expressed his disappointment, writing on a post-it note, "Dad, I think you need to kick it up a notch." Huang sees every failure as a personal failure. As he told biographer Stephen Witt, author of The Thinking Machine, "I think I'm driven as much by guilt as anything else. Guilt for letting customers down, for letting the Nvidia family down." When things went wrong, he'd explode, once publicly shouting at a product manager for nearly an hour. Yet he rarely fired anyone. And when one employee he'd once humiliated was diagnosed with a serious illness, Huang offered to pay for the entire treatment, as detailed in Stephen Witt's book. Nvidia soon released a new version of GeForce that redeemed the product line. Yet Nvidia was still seen as just a gaming company. That changed in 2006 with CUDA, Nvidia's magic software layer. Before CUDA, scientists had to disguise their math as graphical instructions just to use a GPU. With CUDA, they wrote real code and sent it straight to the GPU. Suddenly, the same chips powering games became supercomputers. In 2012, that power exploded into view. A team at the University of Toronto trained a neural network, AlexNet, on 2 Nvidia GeForce GTX 580 gaming cards, running CUDA in a bedroom 24/7 for a week. They entered ImageNet, the Olympics of computer vision, a contest to label objects and photos, and won. They didn't just win, they dominated. While their competitors relied on using CPUs that run only a few complex tasks at a time, they trained their neural network on GPUs, which could run thousands of operations simultaneously. Imagine a CPU as a master chef cooking gourmet dishes, and a GPU as 1,000 cooks flipping the same burger on 1,000 griddles all at once. GPUs could train neural networks hundreds of times faster than CPUs. Nvidia's gaming chips had just ignited modern AI. Even though Nvidia was powering breakthroughs in AI, Jensen Huang didn't yet grasp how massive the AI opportunity really was. That is, until a junior engineer at Nvidia, Brian Catanzaro, approached him one day. Catanzaro realized Nvidia's chips were perfect for deep learning. He had built cuDNN, a software layer that connected neural networks to CUDA, letting researchers tap GPU power without writing complex code. In other words, cuDNN was the bridge between AI algorithms and Nvidia's hardware. But his managers were doubtful, so he went straight to Huang, who listened intently and then spent an entire weekend reading AI papers. Huang had an epiphany and wrote on his whiteboard, OIALO, once in a lifetime opportunity. From that point on, Nvidia poured everything into developing GPUs optimized for machine learning. Huang abandoned all his hobbies, cooking, whiskey, expensive cars, ping pong, which he was really good at. He worked 14 hours a day, every day, all in on AI. Cloud giants Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Oracle began bulk buying Nvidia GPUs for their data centers. And then, in 2023, ChatGPT lit the world on fire, trained entirely on Nvidia's hardware. While Elon Musk warns of AI's existential threat, Huang shrugs it off, telling author Stephen Witt, "Look, you buy a hot dog, so the machine recommends you ketchup and mustard. Is that the end of humanity? The robot's not doing anything strange. Like I said, all it's doing is processing data. If you understand how it works, that world doesn't look weird at all. I'm so tired of this question. All this theorizing about something that there is no evidence for." What does keep Huang up at night is competition. Even as Nvidia dominates the AI chip market, his first cousin once removed, Lisa Su, the CEO of AMD, is battling him for AI supremacy in both hardware and software. And the world's biggest tech companies are all designing their own custom AI chips. Then there's China. As China's naval buildup threatens Taiwan, where TSMC builds Nvidia's most advanced chips, the US is racing to bring manufacturing home, opening a massive new TSMC fab in Arizona. In a revealing interview with the Financial Times, Huang said flatly, China is going to win the AI race, pointing to the growing number of regulatory hurdles in the US and lower energy costs in China. He later clarified, China is nanoseconds behind America in AI. It's vital that America wins by racing ahead and winning developers worldwide. Jensen Huang is one of the longest-serving CEOs on the S&P 500. He's made his employees insanely rich, and himself one of the world's richest. In recent years, he dropped the spelling of his name, Jensen, becoming simply Jensen, often seen sporting a black leather jacket, echoing Steve Jobs' iconic simple look. Despite the riches and the fame, he's never satisfied.
Run, don't walk. Either you're running for food, or you are running from being food.
Thanks for watching. For Newsthink, I'm Cindy Pom.